inflation. This is the thing that Mark will talk about, even though like Mark Steele, he's like he's very much a technical bloke. So he's into all the technicalities of it. But he will say things like, I think oil is like now, it's something like it's 8 times cheaper than it was in 2018 or something. Sorry, going back to about 2010. It's about 8 times as cheap now. So how come gas and that is so expensive? Everything is just manipulated. It's just a game that they've got to steer you. But people will say, "Oh no, it's the Russians or something like that." It's all part of the
game. Putin making our gas prices go up.
He's to blame for everything, isn't he?
Yeah, he started all the fires in Canada too, didn't you know?
Right.
I'm kidding. He did, but they're pushing the climate change. The forest fires are happening because of climate change, and yet you can see the satellite imagery where they're all started at the same time, and it's just so many people have been arrested for arson. But it's
well. Also, Mark will tell you. Yeah, sorry, Mark will tell you as well. Do you know about ionospheric radiators? So you have these massive things used by HARP. And when you see, when you see in the clouds, quite often you'll see these days they have that kind of like staggered effect. It's like it's a pulse going through from ionospheric radiators, and basically when they're talking about climate change, there would be a disaster if the temperature heated up by 1.5 degrees. These ionospheric radiators heat the atmosphere up by 1.5 degrees. He's fighting a case at the moment in Birmingham where they're putting thousands of these things onto the street furniture and the lampposts and everything, and that will raise the temperature of Birmingham by over 1%. 1 degree. So if they're talking about the disaster and how what they seem to be doing is they're using this as the cover, so that when they're doing all these things, when it's flooded with radiation, that's basically causing the rise in temperature. Then you say, "Oh, it's climate change." Everything's climate change now. All the crime will be for climate change, and that usually.
If you consider all of the 4Gs, the 3Gs, the 5Gs, the radiation, the microwaves, including all the HARP technologies, plus the blanketing the skies, they're warming the atmosphere with the chemtrails and all that, and they're deliberately heating the planet. But anyway, aside from that, we all know that it's naturally heating anyway, and that we've actually been cooling for quite some time now, probably around the 90s. So they're trying to ramp it back up again because it's
cool. That's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
They're trying to ramp it back up again by keeping the warmth inside the ionosphere. Yeah. That's what they've been trying to do.
That's it. That's exactly right. And then also like this idea that carbon dioxide is a poison. It's actually the food of plants, and and it's saying that the carbon dioxide levels are actually threatening plant life because they're so low. So everything is an inversion of what you're told. And this is how it makes it so difficult for people on the fringes to take it in, because it's not just, they'll take something like, you can talk to them about like politicians being corrupt, and they can accept that. But what they'll think of it as is like, oh yeah, they'll take a little backhander because they're going to get some money back for putting someone forward for building a supermarket or something like that. So that they'll see it in like sort of little bits, but they don't see the scale of the thing, like sort of the scale of the absolute, not just lies, but the opposite of the truth, and it's hard to make people believe that people are this corrupt and evil. And I think that's what we'll have to do. We'll have to shatter people's illusions about how they see authority, and basically tell them, the authorities don't have your best interest at heart, like sort of far